Welcome to Psychology Corner. This is the audio version of The Class Game Was Always Rigged, The Collapse of a Broken Concept, exposed by Squid Game 2025, Netflix series, movie analysis. At some point in time, civilizations took a wrong turn, and thousands of years later, we haven't recovered. The premise. Early humans lived in small, egalitarian hunter-gatherer groups with shared resources and fluid leadership. Before about 10,000 BCE, social status was based on skill, age, and communal sharing. With the advent of agriculture, kin-based tribal societies emerged, featuring prestige roles tied to control of food surplus and kinship. Everything seemed still fine from a social perspective, and the newly emerging environment allowed humans to thrive. And then, something happened. By 3000 BCE, early civilizations like Mesopotamia and Egypt formed, introducing rigid, hereditary class systems based on land, religion, and political power. Complex urban societies required the sacrifice of the many to the benefit of the few. Slavery through coercion or direct violence became the pillar of the rise of civilizations. Humans ruled over other humans based on arbitrary criteria that seemed linked to objective elements but that were actually designed and selected by a handful of privileged individuals to mainly benefit them and their own. For humanity, things only went downhill from that point on. If you care about freedom and other naturally occurring human rights, that is. During the feudal and imperial eras, 500 CE to 1500 CE, social hierarchy became even more entrenched, with strict birthright and land-based status. What mattered most was the social status you were born into. Nobility and royalty inherited their rank, land, and power regardless of merit, through family lineage. The vast majority, though, peasants, serfs, and laborers, were bound to the land and offered little to no mobility between classes. The system created a self-reinforcing loop where status, privilege, and power were passed down generationally, while the majority remained locked in inherited positions with little hope of change. Then the Con era started, industrial capitalist societies, 1800 CE to 1950 CE, and modern capitalist democracies, 1950 CE to present, manufactured the lie according to which the official direction is toward egalitarianism and freedom, while not so overtly maintaining systems that only rebranded the slave status and fooled many by allowing exceptions where lucky, most of the time, or skilled individuals, rarely, made the jump upward between classes. These social eras introduced and glorified the middle class, the mirage offered to modern slaves that they've moved from the lower level of society to a better one that can, for selected slaves only, become a trampoline toward the highest status there is. Education, one of the most precious achievements and activities of mankind, became the main weapon against free humans. By shifting the individual's focus from internal motivation, learning for the sake of knowledge and skill acquisition, to external motivation, learning for degrees and the chance of higher monetary rewards, the evil designers of modern societies turned people away from relevant achievement and pushed them on the path of organized building of the perfect slave. The previous privileged classes retained their status, power, social designer role and, most importantly, their freedom. And that's why we all live in the mess that we're in right now. And no, I don't want to hear about how modern society is so much more evolved than the hunter-gatherers and other egalitarian societies. That is not the point. The point is that we could have retained the direction toward technological and social growth without killing basic human rights in the process. We screwed up, and we need to own it. Better yet, we need to change it. The collapse of modern society is increasingly noticeable for anyone paying attention. My dissent isn't anything new, and the disillusionment has been voiced by so many others before. Many influential thinkers, writers, and leaders throughout history have warned about social inequality, rigid hierarchies, and the moral, political, or spiritual dangers of stratified societies. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains, was Genevan philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau's way of saying it, and it fits the modern world. Ancient and classical thinkers such as Confucius, Laozi, Plato, and Aristotle, alongside modern and 20th century voices like that of George Orwell, and many, many other known and unknown individuals who lived on this earth, have all tried to open the eyes of the enslaved individuals and usher in an era of freedom and enlightenment. Few listened. Even fewer did something based on the message they've received. The fight to open eyes, better minds, and trigger action is still active. Many of us are still trying to correct the course of civilization. One such effort is through meaningful, relevant art, science, and carefully crafted social discourse. Art reaches more people than any other communication media. It can hide nuggets of wisdom, warnings, and lessons in aesthetically pleasing, emotionally soothing projects. One such recent project is the Netflix original series Squid Game, created and directed by the brilliant Hwang Dong-hyuk. I will analyze in this article the project's relevance in exposing the rigged game of social class and why we need to move beyond this dangerous social stratification if we want to regain our freedom. Spoilers ahead. About Squid Game. Squid Game, 2021 to 2025, is a South Korean dystopian thriller that dramatizes the brutal consequences of social inequality. Through a deadly competition created for the entertainment of the elites, where the poor fight for survival and a massive cash prize, it exposes the deep flaws in class systems and challenges the illusion of fairness in society. The social classes and mobility in Squid Game. There are three main social classes in Squid Game and three elements that connect them and signify social mobility, with its perks and limitations. The players, the lower class. The lowest class one can be part of in Squid Game is that of the average game participants, the 456 contestants, mainly known by their assigned numbers, rather than by their names. They have the worst game experience, being the ones who have to risk everything, put in all of their skills and effort, and receive an ultimate reward that is not the advertised wealth, but survival. You go through hell just to live another day, or another game, in the show's context. Poverty, desperation, and greed bring them into the game. The pink soldiers, the middle class. The pink soldiers or guards represent the middle class. Their skills and real background, meaning average lifestyles instead of desperation and survival, allowed them to be assigned roles above the participants. They don't act on their own volition. Most of the time, they execute orders. They punish or reward the average contestants. They carry out the dirty work of the upper class by getting rid of those who are either too weak or an inconvenience for the elites or game managers. Whatever made them that way, the pink soldiers are ruthless and almost void of empathy. It's what secured their position in the game. They can't die during the normal stages of the competition, they only enforce rules they didn't create. The middle class supports a variety of individuals who pertain to the pink guards, the role of which is to keep the game's wheels rolling smoothly. Here we have managers, soldiers, workers, that include waiters, cleaning staff, even human furniture or sex slaves to be used by the VIPs, and, yes, the recruiter, whom I will address later. The middle class roles are signaled in Squid Game through geometrical shapes painted on the front of the guard's metal face covering. Managers can be identified by the square, the soldiers by a triangle, and general workers by a circle. They no longer retain their identities, they've become social synonyms of their occupations and ways through which they serve the upper class. Sounds familiar? The VIPs, the elite or high class. The highest class in Squid Game is represented by the VIPs, a group that includes the game's creator, Oh Il-nam. Those whose wealth places them in a privileged position of observers and beneficiaries of the game's gory entertainment value. Many of the people who watched the series found the VIPs incredibly annoying, from their redundant commentaries to their accents. Everything linked to the VIPs conveys they are rather unintelligent, shallow, disconnected from reality, unempathetic, cruel and, in general, bland. Their identities remain hidden from everyone else, but their presence is known and even felt at times. The VIPs may choose to join the game's lower class, but only as a choice to directly experience the thrill of being their direct torturers. If they were to join the game, the VIPs would be safe from harm at all times. The middle class would protect them. Even though the final portrayal of the VIPs may have not been the director's intention, I am not sure whether he wanted them to be this vapid. The end result seems to capture the nature and main traits of the so-called real elites best. The connectors and gatekeepers, social mobility elements. In the series, we also get to see two intermediary classes, parties of one, each. Player 456, Song Gi-hun, represents the individual who managed to win his advancement from the lower to the upper classes, though not necessarily next to the VIPs. 456 is one of the game's winners and, consequently, he deserves a place among the VIPs based on his new wealth. However, he decides not to join those who are detached and indifferent to the game's mechanisms and consequences and, instead, becomes a system rejecter and the one who attempts to open the eyes and save as many new players as possible. He wants the games to stop, but to achieve that, he needs to convince the majority of players to vote for the decision. He is, therefore, a link between the lower class and the middle class, and a direct threat to the elites. He knows, he understands, and wants no part in the bloody game, even if it has rewarded him so far and can reward him further. The reason why I say Song Gi-hun is a link between the lower class and the middle one is that if he were to convince a sufficient number of players to vote X to end the game, the saved individuals would become middle class, not VIPs. They would win some money and would get to live a life free of the deadly dangers of the games. And then we have the front man, Hwang In-ho, who is the link between the pink soldiers and the VIPs, and the one who decides the game's rules and fate of contestants outside the direct game outcomes. The front man is key in the game. He is to ensure the entertainment of the VIPs, while coordinating the pink guards and making sure they do their job in relation to the contestants. He is the glue, the enforcer, the mastermind and, if the situation calls for it, the front man won't shy away from any direct action, honorable or not, that needs to be taken to protect the game and its beneficiaries. He is a former winner of the game himself, and the effort and personal transformation that he went through seem worth it because of the position that he now gets to occupy, not necessarily enjoy, though. Hwang In-ho feels entitled to the position because he made the sacrifices. While he shares some traits with the VIPs, he is not their peer, and embodies everything they aren't: highly intelligent, in control, aware. The front man and player 456 are the loneliest individuals in the game. They're in between classes, torn between personal interests and higher aspirations. The front man's loneliness can be potentially solved if player 456 chooses to join him. If Song Gi-hun chooses the same path and becomes a manipulator and enforcer in the class between the pink soldiers and the VIPs, then Hwang In-ho would have not only a peer but also validation of his previous choice. This is what winners of the game do: they fight, win, to access a higher position. But player 456, as we've come to discover in seasons 2 and 3, has no desire to sacrifice everyone in his path to simply become the game's repeat winner and do the same things that Hwang In-ho chose to do to become the front man. Song Gi-hun himself remains lonely since he is also very different from the other players, especially after winning the first time. The game needs all of these classes to function properly. Players, workers and enforcers, all to legitimize and serve the VIPs. But while we understand why the middle and upper classes would willingly become part of the game, why would anyone end up as a mere participant? Enter the recruiter. No, I didn't forget about him. Upper middle class, above workers and soldiers, his former roles, below the front man's rank. The game would be no fun without the right participants. Someone needs to make sure that those placed in the game are made of the stuff needed to be a participant and not much else. This skilled manipulator's role was to detect desperation, greed, and basic level skills in those he encountered and challenged to a game of dakji. If his manipulation works, the individuals accept the invitation to Squid Game. And that's how their actual nightmare begins: a children's game and a small monetary gain. The appetite for more is triggered in many, and that's why the competition never runs out of participants. The recruiter's position is similar to the front man's, in the sense that he is placed between the pink guards and the VIPs. He was a worker and a soldier, never a participant. He, too, proved worthy of his new role, which allowed him to step outside of the game's restricted environment, but didn't have to risk his life for it. That's what makes the front man a higher rank compared to the recruiter. But then again, if no one had convinced you to play the game because it might be really good for you, none of the tragedies would have happened, and if he had targeted other individuals, the tragedies would have happened to other players than the ones we've come to know during the 3 seasons. The recruiter is a gatekeeper. He controls the access to the opportunity of winning the money after playing all the games in a Squid Game session. The recruiter's sociopathic traits make him the first torturer of the players. Also note that the recruited participants can only come from poor and sketchy backgrounds. Elites and middle classes who decide to join the game as participants only do so for fun. The VIPs who started hunting participants in Season 3, out of duty, the front man, or curiosity, o il nam. Translated into modern social roles and dynamics, the point of it all. One can reasonably argue that the series creator used real-life social stratification as the inspiration for the game's structural elements, and that's all there is to it, only one direction to look at things. I say it is worth looking in the other direction as well, decoding the messages that the show hid in the artistic portrayal of these real classes, and apply the findings to reshape one's view of the world. Here are my main observations in this sense. Feel free to add your own. I will also mention here that I do not claim to have uncovered the show creator's intention or raw message. This is just my interpretation of his work, hoping that it won't minimize or distort beyond recognition any of his purposeful meaning. Elites only exist because the lower classes obey. Without compliance, the hierarchy collapses. Class is a choice, not a natural law. With no players and pink guards, there are no VIPs. If the players refuse to play and the guards refuse to do the elite's bidding, there is no game. The VIPs only have power over the players inside the context that functions based on the arbitrary, ridiculous, and dangerous modern social stratification. If you don't accept the stratification criteria, there's no rigid class separation. You accept the lower class role, it's not just assigned to you at birth. Take player 222, for example, the baby who won the latest edition of Squid Game. She can choose to either continue the class game or attempt to end it once and for all. Class erases identity to enforce control. When they label you, they reduce you to a tool. Reject the role, reclaim your name. Identity comes first. People who want to erase who you are and replace your complex existence with a label that only marks your usefulness in their plan and goals, don't have your best interests at heart. Why would you ever validate their erasure of you? Make sure you're seen, not classified. Player 222, the new one, has no name yet. You start as a number, a statistic in someone else's game. Class systems lie about the limits of your life. You were told this is all there is, but life exists beyond their rules and rewards. There's life outside of the game. Many don't realize, once they enter the competition's environment, but there is an entire life to be lived outside those made-up rules. The game's creators, enforcers, and beneficiaries all have a direct interest to create the illusion that your future is dependent on the environment they've placed you in. That is not true. You can make your own life, your own rules, outside of the game. Distress is engineered to keep you in your place. Poverty and fear aren't accidental, they're features of class, not bugs. There is an active interest from the elites to keep everyone else in a state of distress. Poverty, hunger, desperation, coercion, and fear, these are all used to manipulate individuals in staying in roles they know aren't safe for them. Religion and spiritual beliefs are also used to enforce class rules and spread hope through fear. Class uses greed as a cage, not a ladder. The promise of wealth keeps the poor chasing power that only the elite can hold. Rewards and greed keep you trapped in the lower classes. In Squid Game, Contestants play deadly games to win money. Pink guards stay in the game because their role offers relative protection and status. Greed motivates all lower classes, both players and corrupt guards want more money. For it, the first risk their lives, while the second risk their integrity and privileged position. When you want more of the stuff you don't really need, you're locked in the social class game. Rigid class systems always lead to violence. Hierarchies make enemies of neighbors and turn survival into civil war. Stratified societies based on rigid criteria are never safe, for anyone. Injustice, inequality, and overt manipulation, these are powerful triggers for one's violent potential, physical or otherwise. Even those who are generally non-violent will rise against their oppressors if the pressure is high enough. Lower class members will rise against the middle class because they want their privileged position, and against the elites because they know their status and free of worry life is not based on merit, it's not earned. Middle class individuals will attack the lower class to protect their elevated social position. The middle class will rarely rise against the elites though. The oppression doesn't feel as strong at middle levels, and the average individual's hope that they will one day become the VIP's peers is more alluring than killing the embodiment of their own dream. All classes fear the elites. Sometimes, it's justified, the elites can use their middle-class minions to destroy those who oppose them, but when taken at face value, it becomes an unfounded fear. With no one willing to do their bidding, the upper class is almost incapable of reaching any meaningful goal on their own. There's always someone ready to recruit you into the next nightmare. The face changes, but the trap stays the same. The recruiter is real. Someone, somewhere, has to convince the new generations that it is worth playing the game one more time. And then the exploitation happens once more, for the new wave of players. The promises vary, from keeping the tradition, to income, to status, but there is always someone who claims to be able to tell you exactly how to achieve it. And they lie to you about the process and the outcomes. Think of the latest generations, they were promised that education, college degrees, especially, will secure a good life for them and a privileged social position. Did they all get that? No. In fact, we live in a time when college degrees are meaningless, because they no longer correlate with field-specific skill. Contribute socially now, and you will live a peaceful retirement, true. Again, no. Vote for me now and I will, again, a lie. Stop buying into someone else's promises and build your own life. The middle class protects the system that betrays them. Without the middle class enforcing the rules, the elite lose their foot soldiers. You change the mentality of the middle class, you change the world. Everything would be different if the middle class would just refuse to play the game based on the elite's rules. Since the lower class lives mainly in survival mode, it would be quicker to reason with the middle class and bring about change. If the middle level isn't there to torture the lower class and refuses to serve its masters, the slave game is over. Think of your manager, your employer. Yeah. You're not protected, you're used. You will never join the elite, the game is sealed. Class mobility is a myth. You can mimic power, but you'll never be one of them. You can never become a real VIP. The game is rigged to work against you, unless you inherited the VIP status. The game even disqualifies new money when wealth is the criterion. You may win enough at life to emulate the elites who created the game or get to manipulate its rules, but you will never be fully one of them. Two previous winners of the brutal game, Huang Yinho and Song Gi-hun, weren't elevated to VIP status, just upper middle class. They aren't part and will never be part of the original privileged group. And that is valid for you, no matter how hard you will work at your 9 to 5. Or how much you grow your company. VIP status is not earned, it's inherited. Class survives by hiding who's really in power. You can't fight what you can't see, the elite protect themselves with masks and myths. The VIP's identities are secret to protect them. The same applies in real life. The real game manipulators remain unknown to avoid any reaction against them from the lower classes. They also don't believe they should explain themselves to mere players or workers. Only education and empathy can dismantle class. Awareness and care are how we stop playing and start living freely. Education and empathy, the way out of the madness. Knowledge, skills, and common sense build strong societies. If people could see the present stratification of society is nothing but a game, meaning it is all an artificially created environment, and if they cared enough for themselves and others, they'd simply become unable to participate in the charade. In a class system, winning still means losing. Even those who succeed are trapped in a system that kills meaning and humanity. Playing the game is, ultimately, not worth it. Except for the elites, in this artificial environment based on anything other but merit, everyone is a loser, no matter how high they climb that social ladder. The players die, the guards lose their focus and integrity. Everybody hates everybody. When survival is the stake, you may ultimately have no friends. If you chose really badly, that's valid even when money alone or status are the stakes. Class is a rigged game, and that's the point. There's nothing to fix because it's not broken. It was built this way. The game is not fair by design. You are not to win this game. No one is winning per se. Elite roles can't be lost, lower classes cannot become VIPs, and, even if you're really good at playing the game, the rules change all the time. Remember that in Squid Game, the front man changed the rules as he pleased. He gave Gi-hun a knife to use against the other players, considered the child of 222 a player even before it was born. Some players were spared when they should have been killed. Gi-hun's in-tooth tracker was removed while Jang Jiam-ja's, or player 149's, hairpin was allowed, etc. Unfair advantages will always exist, especially in rigged games. Class is a human invention, freedom means letting it go. There's no natural order here. Only choices we no longer need to make. Playing the game is ultimately meaningless. Naturally, humans are born free. There's no inherent social stratification feature. We can collaborate to reach common goals, but no one has to be in charge as a fixed status. Based on skills and other agreed upon criteria, hierarchies can be put in place temporarily to achieve desired results. Want airplanes? Follow the engineers. Need medical treatments? Follow the ones with medical knowledge and skills. But when you step out of those contexts, you should have no boss or authority telling you where to move next or, even worse, tell you what your worth as a human is. These are only a few of the arguments that can be found in Squid Game, which can be used against the idea of maintaining the concept of social class in practice. It simply doesn't lead to evolution or fulfillment. It destroys who we are as humans. Enter the age of AI, don't get me started with that subject now. Plenty of historical data suggests that the surest way to win at life is simply not to enter the class game. And this is our main issue. We took the wrong turn as a civilization, and now, thousands of years later, it will take an enormous effort to correct it. It's eating up all of our resources, time being the most important. That one we're not getting back. Most people are dependent on the game, many don't even know that opting out is a choice. And we're billions, most of the people being part of the so-called lower class. Education, 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 and luck. We're at a point in history where momentum can mean everything, the difference between taking back our freedom from oppressors and slapping a player number on our chest. The choice to change it all needs billions of people to opt out. Discouraging when you think about it. But here's where my hope springs anew: it all starts within the individual. Reaching each and every human is easier than reaching large groups of people. Because, identity is everything. So, my hope truly lies with you. This article is part of a series. Make sure to check out the other posts and videos related to the Squid Game universe. Welcome to Psychology Corner. This is the audio version of 10 Psychological Reasons Why We Like the Front Man. Squid Game, 2025. Squid Game's impeccable, charismatic, tragic anti-hero, the shadowed, enigmatic front man, fascinates viewers and makes them forget his merciless, calculating nature. In this article, we will explore 10 psychological reasons why we're strangely drawn to Hwang In-ho, even as he navigates darkness and absolute, ruthless control. Spoilers ahead. About Hwang In-ho, the front man. Hwang In-ho, known as the front man, and also as Player 132 and 001, is the enigmatic overseer of the Squid Game. Formerly a police detective, he now manages the brutal competition with cold efficiency and strategic precision. In-ho enforces strict order among players and staff, administering punishment decisively to maintain the integrity of the games. Haunted by a complicated past and a fractured relationship with his younger brother, Jun-ho, In-ho balances his role as both enforcer and conflicted anti-hero. His calm, authoritative presence masks deep emotional turmoil, making him a pivotal and complex figure within the series. The front man stands as a dark mirror to the show's main character, Song Gi-hun, Player 456, embodying the ruthless order behind the chaos Gi-hun fights to escape, and yet, we like him and even root for him at times. Here are 10 psychological reasons why we like the front man. 1. Mysterious presence, the enigma behind the mask. In-ho's masked identity, his solemn, measured voice, and composed demeanor create a mystique that captivates. No one truly knows the front man. The pink guards obey him without knowing his identity outside the game. Most players only got to see his manipulative and deceptive side when he joined them in the competition as Player 001. Gi-hun probably got the closest to In-ho because the front man thought they shared traits and fates, and respected the fellow game winner. The game's creator, Oh Il-nam, also got close enough to him to win his loyalty. Not even his brother, Jun-ho, or their mother knew who he truly was. Everyone only gets to witness a fragment of this reserved character's personality. Viewers seem fortunate enough to access more information about the front man's duplicitous existence, but the minimal dialogue and loaded gestures only seem to add to the enigma. In-ho is a puzzle everyone wants to solve, but he is too intimidating to confront directly. His haunting presence lingers long after watching the series. It intrigues us enough to create an intimate connection with the enigmatic character. 2. Stoic intelligence, the calculated mind behind the game. We both fear and admire highly intelligent villains. The front man is no exception. His analytical mindset and competence that signal mastery, control, and leadership demand respect, even when they're used to manipulate the players, directly, and the game's elite, passive-aggressively, by sometimes making choices that seem to border betrayal of the pink guards or VIPs. In-ho consistently displays an ability to remain several steps ahead of everyone around him. He seems to always know more than anyone else, no matter how they are situated in relation to the game. Outsiders can't identify or reach him, players can't kill him, the guards execute his orders, and VIPs rely on him to run the game smoothly. His brilliant mind also allowed him to win a previous session of Squid Game. His intelligence is the reason why he occupies the privileged role of master. We cheer for merit. 3. Fairness and loyalty, the moral code in a twisted world. The front man is loyal to the game's rules, to the game's creator, and to his own sacrifice and achievement. Nothing and no one can shake him out of his role, even when it becomes clear that he can see he had options and that he could have chosen a different life path. The game's rules, together with his personal convictions related to humans, are his moral code. He believes that the game offers a kind of twisted justice, a final opportunity for the desperate to find redemption. His adherence to the game's rules, no matter how brutal, reflects his deeply ingrained belief in structure and order. He is fair within the framework of that code. His sense of fairness is also proven by the fact that after Gi-hun's death, In-ho visited Player 456's daughter in Los Angeles, and made sure that she would benefit from her father's winner status by giving her a debit card with his winnings. He also takes player 222 to his brother, Junho, who becomes her guardian. Once again, he leaves a debit card with the newborn's winnings. You can rely on the man. 4. Unyielding composure, the calm authority in the storm. Regardless of whether he appears to others as the front man or player 001, In-ho remains cool-headed and articulate, even in crises. His measured tone, poised body language, and confident decisions speak to our subconscious admiration for composure and strength. This level of emotional restraint not only reinforces his authority but also makes him seem untouchable, a figure of unshakable control. In-ho's calmness in the face of extreme violence and disorder adds to an unsettling yet magnetic appeal that draws viewers in. It also makes him unpredictable and hard to read. This is both frightening and attractive. 5. Retained humanity, the emotion beneath the surface. Despite his cold and detached exterior, the front man is not entirely devoid of humanity. There are emotional triggers that still have power over him, despite his new brutal existence. He offered his portion of milk to the pregnant Junhee, so that she will have enough nourishment for herself and the baby. He intervened when Lee Myung-gi was bullied by Thanos and his crowd. In-ho defended Gi-hun from Player 100's accusations of not being truthful about having played the games before. He genuinely participated and helped Gi-hun's team complete the six-legged pentathlon. He also showed emotional connection to his brother, to whom he gave a kidney dash, and mercy toward Thanos. He didn't kill him. In-ho was also gentle and kind to player 222 and displayed emotional depth when he offered Gi-hun's uniform to his daughter. The front man is not always a bad guy. Often, his kind gestures might be part of a complex manipulation, but there were also moments of genuine display of emotion. He is cold but never cruel or primitive. These glimpses into his emotional life make us like him as a human. 6. Magnetic charisma, the power of a stylish, attractive villain. We tend to ascribe positive traits to visually striking figures, and the front man is definitely one of those effortlessly good-looking, wealth-displaying characters. His sleek black outfit, angular mask, and theatrical presence make him visually iconic. His authority, cool demeanor, and commanding presence create a magnetic psychological allure. When the cool clothes and the mask are gone, along with his formal authority, In-ho turns on the charm with jokes, kindness, displays of emotion, and collaboration. No matter the context, the front man captures everyone's attention. 7. Hidden vulnerability, the tragedy behind the mask. Almost a cliché, yet undeniably true, power, coldness, and a visible inclination towards social isolation serve as coping mechanisms for past trauma and inner turmoil. This is clearly valid for the front man. While In-ho presents a figure of authority and control, beneath the surface lies a man who is deeply affected by personal tragedies. He lost his wife and unborn child, he is separated from his brother and stepmother, and carries the guilt of his past actions, even if he justified them as necessary. The fact that he is still trying to do the right thing in certain situations shows that he may feel regret and a desire to have made other choices. These moments of vulnerability make him a more relatable and tragic figure, even though he is a villain in the story. His empathy may be impaired, but ours isn't. We resonate with his struggles and understand his mistakes and inner conflict. It becomes obvious that it is not easy being the front man. 8. Masculine energy, the embodiment of silent strength. The frontman character, as written by Hwang Dong-hyuk, is a beautiful representation of what I will call the ideal man archetype, which I do not wish to anchor to any specific school of psychology. What I mean by ideal man archetype is a classical masculine ideal, the strong, silent type. The frontman relies on carefully crafted presence and action to convey power and assert dominance, not on empty words and overt aggressiveness. One may argue that his behavior may be passive-aggressive at times, which is far from any behavioral ideal, but I think that the end results are what matter. He is respected, competent, and dependable. I am talking about the ideal masculine energy, not the ideal behavior or life choices. The presence, the impact, the appeal, in Ho is manly in every sense of the word, and Lee Byung-hun masterfully portrays the complex characteristics of this tragic character. Just like with every other actor who participated in the Squid Game project, he was the perfect choice for the role. He created one of the greatest characters that viewers can both love and hate with a passion. Beautifully done. 9. Power and control, the unseen strong hand guiding the game. In Ho's role as the front man gives him ultimate power and control over the Squid Game. Ultimately, everything revolves around him, even the main character, Song Gi-hun. He is the architect of the entire event, orchestrating every move, ensuring that the games run according to his meticulous plans. His ability to manipulate players, staff, and VIPs makes him a master of psychological warfare. He controls the lives and fates of everyone involved with the game, and his influence reaches beyond the island where Squid Game takes place. This level of control taps into a dark fantasy for many viewers, seeing someone who is so composed, so in control, even in the most chaotic and violent environments. It's all fun and games, until you find yourself on his wrong side. But viewers will rather identify with the front man's power than see him as their potential torturer, the perks of detachment and wishful thinking. 10. Philosophical edge, the twisted idealist. Whether it is his original belief or a justification developed after his violent actions, In-ho genuinely believes the games offer redemption or release to desperate people. In this context, he thinks he is bringing about a positive change in the world, salvation. Cynicism in action. The frontman's philosophy, though deeply flawed, gives the character an edge that challenges the audience's perception of justice, life, and death. In-ho views death as an inevitable, redemptive force, stripping away the romanticized notions of morality, and instead offering a stark, utilitarian view of survival. His comparisons of the games to real life, e.g., horse racing, provoke reflection, adding depth to his persona. Moreover, some speculate that In-ho is sacrificing his morality to maintain order, which frames him as a tragic anti-hero with no fate other than the one he was forced to accept. So, he seems to want to do the right thing and, when he does the wrong thing, it isn't necessarily his choice. We can explain his villain status, so we like him. Bonus, the stark contrast to the VIPs. Compared to the hedonistic and grotesque VIPs, the front man seems disciplined, intelligent, and principled. Maturity marks his thinking and behaviors. Relative to other characters, he radiates a sense of gravitas and experience, making him a magnetic screen presence. In the end, Hwang In-ho, the front man, is a character whose complexity transcends the typical villain archetype. His silent strength, calculated intelligence, and moments of humanity make him a fascinating figure who embodies the paradox of power and vulnerability. While his actions may be ruthless, they are rooted in a deeper conflict that mirrors the struggles many face within themselves. The front man is a tragic reminder that even in the darkest roles, there's often more beneath the surface, offering us a glimpse into the tangled nature of humanity. This article is part of a series. Make sure to check out the other posts and videos related to the Squid Game universe. Welcome to Psychology Corner. This is the audio version of 7 Dead Serious Social Warnings Hidden in Squid Game, 2025. Those who have followed me on social media over the years know that I am a proponent and supporter of functional anarchy as the ideal form of social organization. What I mean by functional anarchy is a community where individual freedom is the golden standard, and the only limitation comes from the other person's rights. You can't intentionally harm others. You thrive based on collaboration. You can always opt out. Pretty straightforward and, yet, way easier said than done. At this point in time, considering the level of uncontained social violence, This ideal of mine and others must be placed in the utopia category, at least until education and common sense develop and take over civilization in a way that will render government nannies unnecessary and obsolete. Now, unfortunately, our best bet means small governments with limited power over the individual's life. Democracies have tried to embody this idea but failed, in my opinion, to deliver good enough results. The concept is good, but how we translate it into practice is a never-ending and ever-growing mess. Everything was fine for hundreds of thousands of years, and then, at some point in history, civilizations took a wrong turn and we have kept on that path since, while imagining we're heading in the right direction. At some point in history, a small group of men found a way to rule over the majority of society while fooling almost everyone into believing they are protectors, leaders, and shepherds. This social organization crushed individual freedom and only benefits the small group of people whom we now stupidly call the elite. Many scholars, artists, and activists have tried over the last few centuries to open the eyes of fellow humans regarding this enormous mistake, and yet the majority of people refuse to listen or fail to understand the message and its implications. The warnings took many forms: speeches, articles, books, and most recently, movies. Squid Game, 2021 to 2025, is one such project, whose message is a huge warning to humanity, a guide on how to end the madness, and a glimpse into what it can all transform into if humans finally decided to listen and take decisive action. I don't claim to have understood the creator's original meaning and intention, that it is for him and the involved team to share, but the show's rich collection of symbols and connections allows a wide variety of interpretations. There are many ways to look at Squid Game and even more to decipher it. This article is my view regarding the core messages of the show that can be used by intentional minds to help reshape society for the better. I will limit the present analysis to these key warnings, but I have also explored other important facets of Squid Game on the website, including the critique of societal structures, the complex appeal of key characters like the front man, the moral conflicts shaping humanity's future, and strategies to avoid dystopian outcomes. You can find the full series of Squid Game articles here for a comprehensive interpretation of this groundbreaking Netflix show. So, for now, I will list below the main lessons, warnings, and hints about the world we live in that are included in the Squid Game series. These elements, once brought to light and understood by the masses, have the potential to trigger significant societal change. If only we'd listen. Spoilers ahead. About Squid Game. Squid Game is a South Korean dystopian thriller series created by Hwang Dong-hyuk. It follows a group of financially desperate individuals who end up participating in a deadly, mysterious competition, created by unknown members of the social elite. The winner takes home the prize money, but whether he can live with the moral weight of that win is a personal quest. While some previous winners have joined forces with the creators of the game and continued the tradition of exploitation, the newest top performer, Song Gi-hun, or player 456, a number which represents the total number of contestants in any of the game's sessions, decides to change the way of things and dismantle the practice from the inside by joining the competition once more and maybe convincing the new players to choose life and freedom over money, submission, and almost certain death. The 3 seasons of Squid Game follow Song Gi-hun's journey from random player to potential savior. Well, we all know how that ended. To not let player 456's heroic sacrifice go to waste, I think we can all dedicate some time to the hints, warnings, and guidelines hidden in the show's episodes, especially in the last 2 seasons, and maybe, just maybe, become more aware of and more invested in the possibility and goal of radically transforming our society from a limitative exploitation-driven environment back into a freedom-honoring civilization. 7 dead serious social warnings hidden in Squid Game. Or how Squid Game exposes the collapse of modern society and attempts to trigger significant positive social change. 1. The game is an artificial creation. The way our societies function, the rules, the obligations, and the stated set of rights, none of these are naturally occurring. Humans built society, and it reflects their interests, aspirations, limitations, and flaws. The worst part is that the handful of people who decided how to structure our communities did so in a way that doesn't represent the will or interests of most people. Instead, they prioritized their personal gains over the agreed-upon rights of everyone else. Modern society is fundamentally linked to exploitation, and there have always been, and still are, people who prefer it this way. 2. The game is dependent on the existence of classes. Faux leaders would have no one to rule over if society weren't stratified based on classes that determine the type of life experience you are likely going to have as a human being. The creators of the game made sure that the main criterion used to establish someone's class, wealth, is random enough that there will be some fluidity between the categories, and yet, that enough of the upper class will always be protected by the sharp difference between the top level and whatever comes second. This also means that it will take an incredible effort from someone in a lower class to move toward higher environments, and that even those who somehow make a class jump will never truly be part of the initially intended elite group. The class you pertain to also defines your main social role. In Squid Game, there is a representation of three main social classes: the players, lower class, the pink guards, middle class, and the VIPs, the elite or high class, two connectors, the front man and player 456, and a gatekeeper, the recruiter. Each group exists only in relation to the others. Remove one, and the entire structure collapses. The players participate because they are desperate, the guards obey to maintain a fragile sense of power and security, and the VIPs observe and indulge only because the lower classes enable their spectacle. The game's rules mimic real-world systems. The elite appear powerful, but only function within a constructed environment that demands the compliance of those beneath them. Without willing players and complicit guards, the VIPs would have no entertainment, no control, and no purpose. This mirrors our reality. Class systems persist because the vast majority continue to play by their rules, often without questioning the setup. It is not natural law that sustains this hierarchy, it is collective participation. As Squid Game illustrates, if enough individuals refuse to play, the game would cease to exist. 3. Voluntary participation is a lie. Let's consider the main Squid Game rules, as presented in the show. The initial phase. Voluntary entry. Players must willingly agree to participate in the games. They are not forced to join and must sign a consent form. Opportunity to withdraw. Before the competition officially begins, players are given one chance to withdraw without penalty. Main clauses, as stated in the consent form. A player is not allowed to stop playing. Once the games start, participation is mandatory until completion or termination. A player who refuses to play will be eliminated.
Refusal to participate in any scheduled game results in elimination, i.e., death.
Games may be terminated if the majority agrees. If a majority of players vote to end the games, the entire competition is terminated for all. Rule update timeline. 2020 version. If the games are terminated by majority vote, no prize money is awarded, and players return to their normal lives empty-handed. 2024 revision. Upon majority termination, the accumulated prize money is divided equally among the remaining players. Now let's translate all of this in relation to the way most modern societies function and see what we get. The only way to stay safe from the game's deadly potential is to never enter it at all. That's the cleanest option and outcome. It matches the class game idea. Reject it from the beginning and we can use a different criterion to organize ourselves socially. This is the phase where we can choose merit and temporary hierarchies instead of a never-ending losing game for the majority of people. Once you enter this social dynamic, you can't exit the framework as an individual anymore. You lose your power as a single entity with social potential. If you refuse to participate socially as determined by the creators of this environment, you will be shunned by your community. The others will turn against you for simply refusing to obey rules and norms you didn't even know about before allegedly voluntarily joining the game. No college degree? Almost no options to make a living. Not married? No, kids. Society learned to turn these life choices against you. And many other such random and often trivial criteria are used against the individual who attempts to move away from so-called social norms. Reality is that unless you harm someone else, you're truly not affecting the existence of others. Then why isn't your social group accepting of choices that make sense for the individual, even though they may not be the popular ones? Back to voluntary participation being ultimately a lie, most of us didn't get to opt in ourselves. Others signed us up for this social game. Thanks to all previous generations who complied with no regard for the large-scale implications, we're trapped in this rigged game from the second we're conceived, just like player 222, the new one. Well, we have one in-game option to stop the injustice and madness: vote our way out as a majority. And boy, isn't that a trap in itself. See the next point. 4. The democratic vote isn't the way. Democracies are supposed to prioritize the rights and well-being of the individual. One of the main concepts in liberal democracies, presented as a primary tool for achieving this goal, is the democratic vote, where the majority's choice determines the way forward. It seems fair, right? But is it? If we take a closer look at this expected social cure for everything not democratic, we notice the following issues. The vote of a majority doesn't secure a correct or the best decision, only the most popular one. There's a reason we don't all vote on how medical procedures should unfold and where the screws should go on a plane. Most of us don't know enough about these fields to make a safe or even good enough decision. And while we can collectively see the issue with voting for the best treatment for a certain illness when the majority of people don't have medical knowledge, for some crazy reason, we think that the majority of individuals is fit to vote on matters that will definitely influence core elements of our everyday lives: safety, justice, warfare, healthcare, education, etc. The democratic vote infringes on the individual's right to exercise his or her freedom by forcing them to obey rules set by the majority. Even if majorities would be mainly comprised of incredibly intelligent, knowledgeable, kind, and skillful people, each and every individual retains a natural right to create for himself or herself, and for himself or herself only, the life they need or want. Even if it's based on unpopular, poor choices. Again, as long as you don't harm anyone else by infringing on their natural rights, you should not be blocked from doing whatever you want, whenever you want it, with absolutely no need to explain yourself or gain supporters for your decisions. Squid Game shows us how bad the democratic vote is when significant matters are at stake. So many players were forced to continue participating in the deadly competition, even when they wanted out, simply because the majority decided the game should go on. That happens to us every single day. Now pair this with the fact that we've never truly opted in, and therein lies our modern tragedy. And no, others have it worse isn't the argument you want to throw in here. This is not a competition on which social designers were worse than others, they're all bad. As long as you're forcing people, abuse taking a variety of forms, to comply with rules that only benefit you and yours, you're the scum of the earth in my book. Note, I did say previously that none of the rights are naturally occurring, and I stand by that view. Not even the right to live is automatically guaranteed in nature. However, I will still use the term natural at times to mean basic, agreed-upon rights, that refer to an individual's survival and base-level well-being, established starting from a natural emotional context, the existence of both empathy and one's need for self-preservation.
I also use natural to differentiate basic rights from legal rights that have no roots in the natural existence of humans or that of other beings, for example, the right to severance pay, e.g., receiving a month's salary after being fired.
5. What keeps the game going is lack of education, emotional manipulation, and coercion. If more people were fluent in critical thinking, assertiveness, and empathy, we wouldn't even have to worry about the existence of this social game. People would know their rights and their options. They wouldn't allow manipulators to fool them into giving them up. People would be able to function with no babysitting from their governments or from the so-called rulers and elites. Most people would have no desire to control others, their main type of validation would be internal, not external. Most people would react promptly and decisively when, inevitably, individuals here and there would attempt to take over by force and impose their rules in a social environment. People would be capable of organizing themselves cooperatively, creating fair and flexible systems without relying on rigid hierarchies or imposed authority. In short, life would be great for most of us and, frankly, who gives a damn that authoritarian wannabes wouldn't like it? There's a reason why they keep most people so busy with survival, so that they can't dedicate enough time and mental resources to improving their cognition and other skills. And no, so-called state-funded, read taxpayer-funded, free education isn't the answer. Once again, the social designers decide the framework of one's education. This is a long analysis in itself. For the purpose of this article, let's just say there's no relevant education provided by the states unless you want your kids to learn how to be good sheep. Apologies to the sheep. 6. Those who refuse to better themselves trap everyone else in the game. It's no secret that those trapped in player status in Squid Game are the ones whose lives took a significant wrong turn at some point. Of course, the reasons behind the radical negative change vary, some are more justified than others, but each series of 456 players relies on the individual's inability to find good enough solutions to their problems. Guess what would solve that? Yeah. Education. The real kind. Education simply being available to everyone isn't the key, though. Intrinsic motivation to better oneself is. Some people simply refuse or stubbornly resist acknowledging and respecting the value of learning. Not the formal kind, not the kind where you get premium toilet paper in the shape of a degree. No. The kind that triggers better life results almost instantly. The kind that the individual can build upon to better his or her life, and the kind that generations after generations can use to develop socially as a group. Those who refuse to better themselves get to vote. And they keep all of us trapped in this ridiculous social game. And this nonsense goes on for generations, and unless we start changing things soon, more and more people will fall prey to this system that feeds on lives, hopes, and other people's potential. 7. You don't have to play. We are not horses. This is probably the most important social warning hidden in Squid Game. No matter how bad things have gotten, we don't have to continue participating in the destructive chaos. The sooner we realize that not only is there a way out but that we can trigger it whenever we're ready, the better for each and every one of us and for the future of mankind. Over to our fellow humans. Which way now? Once again, director Hwang Dong-hyuk captured the complexity of human nature and the open ending that we are now truly facing, in Song Gi-hun's last line, humans are. My interpretation of it, on Psychology Corner and YouTube. We've been at a crossroads for quite some time now. Will we finally right the wrong our ancestors activated thousands of years ago, or will we continue the ritualistic sacrifice generation after generation, on the altar of the elite's privilege and enjoyment? For many of us, this is a heartbreaking, painful thing to watch. So many of us see the way out and we can't step through that door because it's been designed to only accept us as a group. Remember the exit doors in the show that needed several keys to open, not just individual ones? Well, maybe. Someday. Or we all stay. But you can't say you haven't been warned. This article is part of a series. Make sure to check out the other posts and videos related to the Squid Game universe. Welcome to Psychology Corner. This is the audio version of Humans Are, the Moral Schism of Humanity's Future, according to Squid Game, 2025. Humanity is at a crossroads, and the future hinges not on the systems we've inherited, but on our willingness to return to what truly matters. In the dystopian world of Squid Game, 2025, the thin layer separating harmonious social development from chaotic, man-induced destruction is brought into sharp focus, compelling viewers with a critical eye to assess one of the most consequential decisions humanity has faced in the last 10,000 years. The open-ended phrase "humans are" invites the audience not only to speculate about where we are going as a civilization but also to reflect on their individual impact in shaping its future. Spoilers ahead. The phrase origin. In Season 1 of Squid Game, after player 456, Song Gi-hun, wins the 33rd session of the competition, the front man, Hwang In-ho, explains that the reason the bloody event happens is that the elites and the rule makers see humans as horses in a race, and bet on them in the same way. In the series finale, Gi-hun says we are not horses. We are humans, before making the ultimate sacrifice to save the newborn player 222 in the final game. The last thing this heroic character says, with a stern, grave look, is the open-ended phrase "humans are," allowing viewers to reflect on its meaning. The moral schism contained by the phrase. The brilliant creator and director of Squid Game, Hwang Dong-hyuk, made the elegant decision of not forcing his own interpretation and view on humanity as the conclusion of the original Netflix series. Therefore, we are invited and allowed to speculate on its meaning and fill in the gap with our own perspective and understanding of what we believe humanity should stand for. I want to take this opportunity and add the commentary regarding the phrase to my series of articles that analyze the Squid Game universe and its potential to impact civilization for the better. Considering that Squid Game can be seen as a profound allegory for the constructed and oppressive social systems we inhabit, systems maintained through coerced participation, entrenched class divisions, and the illusion of choice, the phrase "humans are" stands as the threshold between our present social structure and the potential that lies beyond these imposed frameworks. Here is my interpretation of that phrase, in this context. Humanity, in its present state, is like Schrödinger's cat. Player 222, the new winner of the Squid Game, represents our future, but what kind of future that will be remains unknown until she, the new generation, grows up and makes a choice, to continue or to stop the game. In my series of articles, the game primarily refers to the perpetuation of social stratification based on rigid class divisions, a system that traps individuals in roles they did not choose and sustains inequality across generations. The show tells us it can go either way. Since 222's mother was on the right side of history, she wanted the games to stop, while her dad pertained to the group of individuals whose repeated poor choices affect everyone around him. He wanted the games to continue and benefit from their deadly outcome. We may look at Gi-hun's sacrifice and at player 222 and decide immediately that this must be about the innocent world that comes after us, if we make the right, moral choices, but truth is there's no guarantee that a generation's good intentions and positive actions will be acknowledged and honored by the next one. For all we know, 222 may grow up and decide to be the cruelest front woman Squid Game's ever seen. We can't tell who she is, she doesn't know that yet either. Does that mean that it would have been a better choice for Gi-hun to throw the baby off the tower and walk out as a repeat winner of the competition, continuing his in-generation fight against the front man and the VIPs? Of course not. The best thing we can do, as intentional thinkers and protectors of natural freedoms, is to have faith in the next generation, not blindly, but by preparing them properly to continue correcting the path for all mankind by getting rid of social injustice, gradually and safely. Gi-hun is a hero, but 222 is not yet salvation. But we can help her be. Humans are. Reflects a fragile moment between inherited systems and the possibility of profound change, a change that, paradoxically, means returning to our roots, the egalitarian, cooperative social structures of hunter-gatherer groups, where resources were shared and leadership was fluid and merit-based. Our future depends on whether we break free from cycles of inequality or remain trapped within them. Player 222 embodies this uncertainty, a reminder that the path ahead is ours to shape, for better or worse. Humanity is. What we make of it. This article is part of a series. Make sure to check out the other posts and videos related to the Squid Game universe. Welcome to Psychology Corner. This is the audio version of how to avoid humanity's Squid Game-esque apocalypse. In a world teetering on the edge of its own Squid Game, where social collapse and moral decay loom large, the future of civilization hinges on intentional change, not mere continuation of broken patterns. It requires deliberate, radical action, a refusal to be just another player in a rigged system, and instead, a commitment to rewriting the rules for humanity's future. The Netflix series Squid Game, 2021 to 2025, exposes the brutal reality of a world trapped by entrenched inequality, systemic exploitation, and the illusion of choice. It is not just a story about money corrupting people, it is a mirror held up to society's darkest impulses, deep-seated stratification, and a warning about what lies ahead if we fail to act. To avoid humanity spiraling into a real-life Squid Game, a dystopian apocalypse born from division, despair, and dehumanization, we must become intentional thinkers and courageous actors. The time for complacency has passed. For a deeper exploration of how Squid Game exposes the collapse of class structures, the psychological complexity of characters like the front man, the social warnings embedded in the series, and the moral dilemmas that define humanity's future, check out my detailed breakdowns of these critical themes, available on Psychology Corner and YouTube. And now, here are 20 steps to avoid the apocalypse lurking beneath our fractured society. Spoilers ahead. Focus on self-awareness and individual empowerment. Educate yourself relentlessly. Know your history, social structures, and hidden systems that shape our world. Ignorance is the true trap, and the broken societies designers meant for things to be like this. Acquire knowledge, skills, and exercise your empathy and other social skills to see and be prepared to fight the dangers ahead. Reject external definitions of your identity. Don't let society, media, or elites dictate who you are. Define yourself on your own terms. Be skeptical about those who try to erase who you are, your story, and who attempt to assign you labels that only make sense if you are a tool in someone else's plan. Become an intentional thinker. Question everything. Pause before you react. Reflect on your values and choices every step of the way. Don't try to prevent others from doing the same. Cultivate relevant skills. Develop abilities that make you a valuable collaborator and interesting person to be around, skills that can't be automated or controlled. Egalitarian societies are merit-based and require individuals to demonstrate their capabilities before being recognized by the group as valuable members. Rely on yourself first. Build resilience and independence before depending on others. Be someone others want to work with. Don't sell your principles, your future, and the future of the next generations, for a month's salary. Focus on social navigation and resistance. Don't accept rights infringement. Stand firm against any erosion of your freedoms. Small compromises lead to systemic loss. To protect your rights, you first must know what they are. Also, make sure you are not the one infringing on other people's rights. Act with purpose and precision. Make every action count toward positive change, avoid distractions and empty gestures. Silliness is fine as long as it doesn't become what defines your actions, even in significant moments. Build networks that challenge the status quo. Surround yourself with people who resist oppressive systems and support each other's growth. Stay away from environments that teach and reward obedience, especially the blind kind. Expose social and economic manipulation. Unmask how elites maintain control through deception, and spread awareness. Once your eyes are open, you can help others see the game's puppet masters and their intentions, too. Create safe spaces for dialogue and action. Foster environments where difficult truths can be discussed without fear. It all starts with freedom of thought and freedom of expression. When these rights are considered a threat, you should know that you find yourself in an environment that needs you to be a number, an instrument, not an individual. Focus on challenging systems and power. Refuse to participate in exploitative systems. Boycott groups, institutions, and corporations that sustain inequality and class oppression. Refuse to be their enforcer or puppet. Disrupt inherited privilege cycles. Use your influence and resources to dismantle barriers that trap others in poverty or marginalization. You can do that by simply offering information and connecting individuals with opportunities. Demand transparency and accountability from the elite. Call out corruption and demand public scrutiny of those who wield unchecked power. When you choose to look the other way, you become part of the system, not of the elite, though. Support structural reforms, not just surface changes. Push for deep social and economic restructuring, not cosmetic fixes. The so-called governing class will throw minor, trivial changes at the masses to feign competence and interest. Ask yourself, what good is a sour candy when you're thirsty? Organize collective resistance and mutual aid. Make calculated sacrifices and struggles a shared burden to prevent burnout and fragmentation. To reach a common goal, difficult times may lie ahead. Make sure those are justified and that going through them brings you closer to the achievement you desire, not simply depletes your resources on a side path. Focus on vision and legacy. Have faith in the next generation, but prepare them well. Invest in education and values that teach justice and cooperation without naivety. The new generations need to learn from the previous ones, not waste time discovering and inventing everything all over again. Reject the myth of meritocracy. Understand that the game is rigged. True progress requires changing the rules, not playing by them. Currently, society doesn't reward merit, it rewards blind obedience and passive stances. Refuse to treat yourself and others as if the present social status were an accurate reflection of one's skills and achievements. The mirror is distorted, even though it occasionally shows glimpses of reality. Promote egalitarian and cooperative social models. Look to pre-hierarchical societies for inspiration on sharing resources and leadership fluidity. Challenge the "but it's been like this for thousands of years" narrative by fearlessly and unapologetically going back to the very beginning of our social history. The first humans survived with minimal resources. Maybe they knew better than those who continue to fail in an era of never-before-seen scientific and technological advancement. Hold yourself and others to ethical accountability. Demand that morality guides decisions, even when it costs you personally. Put yourself first without stepping on others, basically. This includes nature and other animals. Remember, humanity is what we make of it. Your choices ripple beyond yourself, shape the future by refusing to be a pawn in a cruel game. Inaction, in this context, is just as bad as blind participation. The only way forward is to end the game, to dismantle the entrenched systems that thrive on inequality, exploitation, and false competition. This isn't a call for simple reform, but for a radical reimagining of how we organize society, one where merit, cooperation, and true freedom replace inherited privilege and arbitrary rules. Squid Game shows us the deadly cost of continuing the cycle. But it also offers a choice: to break free, to refuse to play by those broken rules, and to build a world where no one is forced to gamble their humanity for survival. Ending the game means reclaiming our shared future and insisting on a society where everyone has a fair chance, not because the system says so, but because it is designed that way. The next move is ours. Let's make sure it's the last game ever played. P.S. My concern is that many viewers of Squid Game will only see its entertainment value, as has happened so many times before with many other warnings that chose art as a vessel to deliver a significant message. That would be one more chance lost for humanity. This article is part of a series. Make sure to check out the other posts and videos related to the Squid Game universe.
Welcome to Psychology Corner. This is the audio version of the Psychology of Squid Game The Challenge 2023, Netflix reality competition show analysis. About Squid Game The Challenge. Yes, we are all waiting for Squid Game's second season. And no, this new TV show wasn't it, even though many viewers and even some publications have treated it as such. I have no idea why, but the online reviews quite frequently mention that expectation and the subsequent disappointment. This minor human issue aside, Squid Game The Challenge is a new reality competition show based on the insanely popular series, with a high chance of becoming quite loved by the public itself, once the audience figures out this is not a continuation of the initial TV show, and the producers figure out how to create suspense of a superior kind, since thrills were quite rare during this first season. If you are a fan of Squid Game, you will likely love The Challenge as well, especially since the competition is taking place in some of the familiar, enormous, gorgeous sets and features most of the games in the original series, such as Green Light, Red Light, Dalgona, and the Glass Bridge. While the game show fails in certain respects to match its inspiration, it definitely provides an interesting experience for the viewers, one that's enhanced if you are willing to see the competition as more than a simple set of steps for the winner to get the $4.56 million cash prize and decide to consider the many aspects in which the challenge mirrors real life and its chaotic, unstructured way to distribute success in its many forms. I will discuss elements of this process next, how Squid Game The Challenge can help you understand life better, and why certain things happen to certain people, but not to others. Spoilers ahead. The analysis. In Squid Game the series, we followed the main character Seong Ji-hun's journey as he defeats 455 other contestants in a deadly game that leaves the single winner with a $4.56 million cash prize, severe emotional trauma, as well as many doubts and questions about themselves and about life itself. We cheered for Ji-hun and expected him to win. There was no surprise there. But the challenge was different. It started with 456 people, and we could barely keep track of the main players throughout the 10 episodes. We didn't even know who's who, let alone be able to infer who's got more chances to win. I guess this part counts as the main appeal of the reality show. It resembles real life, and those in front of the screen have a bird's eye view of the situation. Scripted bits, and what I believe to be planted contestants aside, the challenge keeps you watching because of this very reason. You have no idea what's going to happen next. And this time, since you're not an active participant and don't have to concern yourself with winning at life, you can simply relax and observe how order is shaped out of randomness. Here are a few elements that caught my attention. Competition is everywhere, all the time. We all want something in life. Money, attention, recognition, relationships, jobs, you name it. To get what or where we want to, we have to compete against other people who want the same thing. This is valid for most finite resources, and even for many of those considered infinite, when, for example, we all want a result at the same time. Even if you don't consider yourself competitive, you will engage in life's contests every day, one way or the other. Even if you go to the grocery store to get bread, once you take it from the shelf, it means the supply is now diminished, and this can potentially cause others to not be able to buy bread that day, or go for a different brand, or drive to a different store, etc. Whether you like it or not, life is a contest, and a deadly one too. Competition is unknown. In most contexts, you have no idea who your competition is, what are their strengths, weaknesses, and whether you can use any of that information to win. Things may become clearer along the way, but in the beginning, you have no idea who you're going against. If you apply for a job, pursue a love interest, or want people to buy your book, at the very beginning, you have no idea how many others decided that's their goal as well. Sometimes rules don't apply. Humanity managed to put some guidelines in place, both legally and socially, to try and ensure a harmonious common living for most of its members. In some contexts, these rules and recommendations work just fine, but not all life contexts are built the same. We sometimes find ourselves in situations where the rules and structure we know no longer apply. This may mean uncharted territory, a zone where players refuse to respect the previous conventions, somewhere where participants are governed by different rules, or a context where one's rules simply cannot be enforced. You have to be prepared to function and win in situations where everything you know is suspended. Rigid minds will fail. Values and principles, follow them at your peril. There will be life contexts where we need to reconsider our core values and the principles that shape our existence in the light of our goal. One may have to suspend, renounce, or adopt new values, beliefs, or principles to properly manage a certain situation. While I do advocate for an assertive lifestyle, which means you can act in any way you like as long as you do not harm or create any discomfort to another being, one must be realistic about the nuanced aspects of existence. Some contexts may require one to do things they are not comfortable with, and which go against the interests of others. Sometimes you can avoid these hard decisions, but at other times, your well-being and that of those around you may depend on this decision of yours. Of course, this part won't necessarily cover life and death situations, but here's just an example of the kind of situation I have in mind. If you find out you and your best friend applied for the same job, you love your friend and vowed to always support them, and you both need the job equally, would you forfeit in their favor? The same for a love interest. As for the extreme kind, consider self-defense or defending those you love. Would any of your beliefs regarding harming others be suspended in that context? Food for thought. You can only rely on yourself. Ultimately, no matter how many people cheer for you, if it ever comes to you versus them, I suspect you would be cheering for yourself. The same happens in the challenge. There is a single victor and the winner takes it all. By the way, I can't be the only one who thought families and friends participating in the game could decide to share the prize with each other, or even incentivize other players with this kind of a promise. Skills don't guarantee success. Squid Game, the challenge, is definitely not a competition that rewards merit. People with great skills failed to move higher in the game, while some of the alleged misfits or tag-alongs fared most of the challenges just fine. To lead or not to lead, in this game, damned if you do, damned if you don't. The challenge only allows one winner. This is not a team game in itself, but it relies on teamwork for certain parts of it. Deciding whether to be involved as a leader and accept the responsibility and risks that go with the role, or to simply follow some other contestant and put your fate into their hands, must have been one of the toughest types of choices for the participants. Sometimes it's luck and you can't do anything about it. Many contestants left the competition not because they were bad at it, but because their fate was decided by some random factor. A game of luck, a forced decision, an element that affected the group they were part of, etc. It happens in life too, and quite often, that is. You have to be prepared to accept that there are situations that you have little or no control over, and that they will still affect you, sometimes in a significant way. Sometimes it's stupid and you have to go with it. Some of the games put players in ridiculous situations. Dalgona is one of them, and yet one had to make a fool of himself or herself to move forward in the competition. Visibility and low profiles. So many people look for fame or want their name to be known for something specific. Yet if you're visible, it means you're putting yourself at risk of being made into a target. People won't attack what they can't see, which is why some of the blandest contestants managed not only to remain in the game for a long period, but even make it into the final rounds. I had no idea where some of the contestants came from. Some were forced into the light because of a game or because the number of contestants kept decreasing, while others intentionally made it their strategy to keep a low profile throughout the game and use that to their advantage in the later phases of the game. Some goals and the path toward achieving them bring out both the best and the worst in people. Sometimes it's the same individual displaying both effects at different points in time. It's all in the triggers included in every segment of the game. Different context, different person. In the challenge, we've seen participants show the best kind of human qualities: camaraderie, fair play, accountability, etc., and also the worst of traits: greed, narcissism, sabotage, manipulation, etc. That is also why we need to be careful about our real-life environment and the people we surround ourselves with. When we have a choice, and that is, in most cases, I'd say we go for those that nurture and bring out the best in us and others, instead of searching for opportunities to start new fires and burn everyone and everything in our path. Confined spaces or forced environments make people act in unpredictable, irrational ways. If people are forced into a certain physical environment or in social groups they do not like, disaster is, more often than not, about to happen. Being good at the game won't mean you'll win it. I did touch on the merit aspect before, but here I want to also add the fact that being incredibly skilled or good at what you do may also turn you into a target, not only for other skilled players, but mainly for those who lack your abilities and envy you for your results and potential. Haters and saboteurs may have a chance to use their destructive powers against you, and they will. It's irrational to think that everyone would admire you simply because you mind your own business and are good at what you do. Those who want you out of the game lurk everywhere and have no other interest than to increase their chance of success by ruining yours. You won't win if you don't play. Only the Squid Game contestants were eligible to win the $4.56 million cash prize. Those of us watching from home couldn't get the money, no matter how valid our observations were and how good we could have been at every one of those games. You simply cannot win a game you're not participating in. It's the same in life. If you want something, you have to intentionally put yourself in the situation and environment that can generate the desired result. Otherwise, your skills and aspirations are wasted. These are only some of the elements present in Squid Game: The Challenge that can be applied to real-life contexts as well. Ultimately, I think this show has the potential to gain a dedicated following simply because it resembles life's struggles and dynamics. And unlike the movie, The Challenge is already casting players for the next season. Let's just hope they'll jump on the right square this time as well and won't fall into the television void where so many of their fellow shows have gone to be forgotten.